Only person I thought wouldn't.
I'm with, yeah.
We all good now? All right, we'll call the meeting to order. Motion for the minutes. Second. All in favor? Yeah. Approve payroll. That's done. Factory. Brand Ween will not be here for a little while. For another 15 minutes. So that brings us to Sonia.
The reason I'm here this evening is because we currently have a application only for a renewal for a marijuana license. And as we were talking about this renewal, we believe as a board that the fee schedule for renewal is too high. We would like the fee schedules to be lowered. Currently, tier 3 is the
right.
tier 3 is the tier that I'm talking about right now. During the application process, we charged them $20,000 to get a license for marijuana for tier 3. We think that it would be reasonable for the renewal to go down to $10,000 or less. We would also like to ask if the renewals that are. We would also like to have our ordinance changed in the respect that currently the way that we have renewals, somebody has to reapply for the whole entire application, which seems kind of silly. So we would prefer if the applicants were, for example, I'm sorry, I'm all over the place. Freiburg is currently for their renewals in their town. They present them to the CEO for review each year. The applicants are only asked to demonstrate continued compliance with this ordinance or other municipality ordinance, articles, bylaws, and rules or regulations or law. So basically their renewal process is very easy. They just have, I'm assuming, have a checklist of what they're doing, where they are, and if they're compliant. And it should be that simple. It shouldn't be that somebody has to come up and redo the whole application, in my opinion, and have a $20,000. So we would like to redo our ordinance in that respect of the renewal, but we'd also like the board to consider reducing the fee schedule for renewals.
Yeah, I think that's more than fair. You know, it's 20,000 for your initial, and then 10 for a renewal.
Tier 3.
Yep.
But it just doesn't seem, we were very green when we were writing the ordinance. We were one of the first to do it. We were copying other towns. So we followed their lead. It felt like it was a good number then. Now that more and more towns have adopted the marijuana ordinances, they are not charging as much as the initial applications that we originally had. That originally were coming in rather. So I think it's still reasonable to keep the tiers as is during the application process, because I think that it will have a certain quality to it. Yep. So then you will keep the people who I think will run a well-rounded establishment with the tier schedule the way it is. But yep. I do think that the renewals, that doesn't seem very fair to me.
Yep. Yeah.
So I don't know what number you guys want to do renewal, but we would also like to make the process easier.
Yeah, yeah, it should be simple when it comes to renewals. I mean, it shouldn't be, you know, you have to start all over again.
Yeah, I'm not certain why we did that. I think we just wanted to make sure that we were, you know, that we were making sure that marijuana was going to be run correctly in our town. We didn't know what that looked like. Again, it was pre-COVID and life, and just we're not certain. But now that we're learning and seeing what other towns are doing, longer things.
Good idea.
I don't know the number.
I'd look at a recommendation from the planning board.
Yeah.
You guys can reach out. You know,
20
the other ones were reviewing the documents from the other town. Yeah. So doing something.
So I'll give you a number when I come up with one. I was just looking what everybody else is doing.
And Mike has to inspect them.
Place.
Yeah, Mike has to inspect them before they renew.
Yes, and so does Dick.
And Dickie does, okay. Okay,
And it seems like that is what we should do and not, I don't think it should come to the planning board after the initial. Application, I think renewal should be done by the CBO.
that could be done.
It's not dependent on the inspections, so.
Yeah, it's all dependent on the spec.
Dual signature.
Yeah, if those two agree, then it should be fine, yeah.
It just seems like it's silly to come back to the planning board if it's just a rumor.
Yep.
Unless they have concern, they want to bounce it back because they have questions or concerns about a certain application, they can certainly bounce it
And,
back.
and at any time they can always come ask you questions.
Exactly, anytime. So,
Yep, Bruce?
Yeah, no, it's 3 or 4 months ago, Mike was, said the ordinance was unenforceable. Is anything being done about that?
I didn't get that.
It was in the meeting,
that the marijuana was,
and it had to do with the medical part of it.
that has been clarified.
Okay. Okay.
It-
I'll talk to Mike tomorrow and, Yeah. yeah,
He came. Said that he did not.
okay.
Agree.
Good.
Good.
Well, that was too easy.
This time,
All right,
okay, I'll let you guys know a number.
thank you. Did the correspondence folder? No, you.
This, again. Mike said that there's only one thing that he would know is now. And I think it was about. Okay, this one, he said that really wasn't. So I just wondered, should we ask Willie if he's seen anything on this? Because we've got deadlines.
Yeah, yeah, on the stuff in the,
Oh, yeah.
the combustibles, I think, are gone, aren't they?
Thought they were.
Yeah, so I think that's rectified.
Well, the only thing we had left at the community center were the outside entrances.
Yeah, and all you needed for the workers' comp is a plan.
Yeah.
So they're looking for the, what do you intend to do?
Okay. Yep, so the front door, we needed probably a doorbell. Some kind of a doorbell, so they can get up the ramp, but they can't get in the door.
Well, that's here.
Out there too.
Talking Justice Department, or you're talking works comp? You've got two different things.
Oh, okay.
You got two different. things.
Okay, so workers' comp is this one?
This is
Workers'
the
comp
one,
is the community center,
Right.
yeah,
which you need to have a plan on what you're gonna do with the handicap ramps. What you're gonna do about the rooms, which they've cleaned out, they've done a lot
Yeah,
since then, you just put in there that what has been done and your plan for the handicap ramp. The Justice Department is the one that you have to agree to, well, they're gonna come look at it anyway. So someone a little high authority has to sign that, who they're gonna contact when you come here,
okay,
and then they're gonna come inspect on February 17th.
okay,
So the Justice Department, and then they'll tell you what you need to do.
okay,
And I think one thing is that there has no, the handicap accessibility, what they're talking about is that if someone comes to that front door, they can't get in. If you have a bell or something that notify somebody, you have somebody to let them in, opens the doors and they can get in.
okay.
I think that's what you're gonna see.
That'd be easy enough.
Yeah, and I think we actually should do it over there. too.
It's either a bell or.
Yeah, call button or something.
Like the hospital.
Yep,
yep.
The bell,
Yeah, that'd be
in
easy.
their specs, what I've read is that something's you gotta have somebody open the door, you gotta get notified. So I think a doorbell or something like that, they can reach, there's no, your door, but your door is wide.
Right. And the space between them, plenty of room.
See the closet.
Bell to a big word.
Shot on.
But
Yeah, I think it'd be easy.
a lot, a little driveway thing, and it rings inside when somebody drives in.
yeah, but you don't want that because then every single person that comes in will, and then you'll be out getting up every 5 seconds.
Just hang a hammer. So get off the door.
Look, this one through this, and talk to them, and
Yeah.
they give you time.
Yeah.
They're still working on theirs. They had issues, they handicap ramp, they had issues about upstairs and second floor, egresses, they looked this cool.
Well,
And they
the
worked with you.
the front door one is fine, except for they plow the snow on top.
We recognize.
So, yeah, and then I gotta ask them to clean out the door by the furnace room too.
And if that's not good, the need goes over. Straight out,
Yeah, they were shoveled out the other day. I come back to check it.
not day after day.
I didn't check it today. The other day after I heard they weren't, I came back and they were.
Yeah.
It must have been the day he brought the bags that they got done. So that's, yeah, the public work guys have been out quite a few hours. And nope, they're not done for this week, so. They've done a pretty good job. I don't know of anything. I haven't get any calls about mailboxes or anything myself this time, so.
They got one on Main Street. You got, I can get one. Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah, they went around, pushed things back quite a bit today, so hopefully,
They even plowed both sides of everything.
oh wow, there you go, see. So, no, I think, you know, they're doing a pretty good job. Oh. The Red International,
Oh, yep, they got the head.
they got the head, they put it on. I will tell you what they told me. The injectors are bad now. Okay, and they stripped one of the bolts, in the head, the new head,
Oh, that's there.
and they say it was because it had a helicoil in it. And I said it's probably used an impact gun instead of torquing it. Because you're the helicoil hold.
You've got to torque that stuff, can't.
So, but it is warranted. I had Cliff call over to International, I said, you have him call Eric at Ridemore and talk to them. I called Ridemore and they said, yes, warranty. We'll do something with them and figure it out. And so,
All the injectors are bad.
yeah, there's nothing wrong with them before, but now they, you know, this is,
What's
I don't like going to Falmouth. I like going to Auburn. Like, of course, I know the plant manager in Auburn.
Yeah, but this isn't right. This isn't consistent. When they start, get one thing done, now it's another and another and another, something's wrong with that
Yeah.
picture.
So I think first of the week I'm gonna land over there and have a discussion with them.
Yeah.
We'll go.
Is Auburn and them the same company?
Same company, but totally different.
Why did it wind up in Yarmouth?
I don't know.
No, Falmouth?
Yeah, found, because I asked them to take it to Auburn
Yeah,
and they sent it over there. I don't know.
I don't know where they're told to.
yeah, this has got to come to a close.
I just,
Hang the ground.
on that,
Oh,
anybody got anything else? How about with the broadband?
Try to talk a little slower than usual. So we got our summary from Mission Broadband, really compares all 6 of the respondents. Back to back to one another, so you know, what we ask for were innovative approaches. To closing the gap here in Brownfield and the other towns, and they definitely got innovative. Basically, sum total project cost for any one of the unanticipated projects is between $24 and $32 million. A lot of that, you know, we're going to be applying for a grant. We're going to be asking for an amount of money. Will we be awarded that amount of money or we won't? And obviously any project going forward, we need some of that funding. There are 2 providers, Consolidated Communications and Spectrum Cable, who have offered 0 cost to towns options. That's because they're already on poles. They already have their licenses. In both of those cases, it would cost us nothing to have a single operator owned network, just like we have today. 0 control over what happens going into the future. So on one side of the spectrum, we've got this really cheap, probably in the next 18 to 24 months. Bought and paid for, done, you know, no problem. Likely there'll be some franchise agreements and these kinds of things that have to be opened. On the other side of the spectrum, there's, you know, even the very most expensive $32 million proposal In this case, this provider, this is Axiom from up north. They're suggesting a 20-year bond to cover the town's portions. Which the debt will be serviced by the subscriber rates. So basically, each and every individual that takes the service, some portion of their goes to Axiom. Axiom makes yearly payments to each of the towns make their payments for the bond that was borrowed. And in this case and in others, it looks like this debt service will actually generate revenue, even with the most conservative pay rates. Meaning, we run fiber optic past most of the houses in Brownfield, but don't actually tie into them, and they don't pay us anything. It still looks to be economically feasible, so. You know, there's a ton of details in here. I'm not gonna just hand them out verbatim in this meeting. But there are at least 4 really viable options here. 2 of them with providers we know and love. And a couple with new guys, I'll say. They're not new guys, they're all effective and well-established companies. GWI, Matrix Design Group, Axiom, Consolidated, and Spectrum.
Are they all gonna try to keep it in the $50-$60 range? Is that what they're?
So we've got, there are a couple that are over that. For instance, Matrix Design Group is much more in line with like Elon, Starlink pricing. Yeah, $59.99, $55, $55, $95 is GWI, but I'm sorry, is Matrix. But Matrix did not count on any grant funds. So any grant dollars that we get would effectively reduce those rates. But it was the first question we asked of them, why is yours twice what everybody else's is? Again, you know, it's such a complicated list of details. Matrix is basically proposing, hey, of the $30 million, we're gonna bring 70 or 80% of that out of our own, out of Matrix's capital. And we'll be responsible to bond or get grant funding for the remainder. And no payments in that case are due until 2026. After which we start making money off of the thing. So there's not one of these, I think, that's allowed to propose. But we do need to understand, and pretty quickly, you know, what is it that's most important to us, to our townspeople? Are we looking to get into something cheap and now, or are we looking to get into something future-proof with a provider who's genuinely proven to be interested in access for everyone, see improving the broadband landscape, and maybe paying a little bit more for that? Forming a broadband utility district or something to that effect to oversee, you know, some of this stuff. There's a lot here.
Yeah.
So we are meeting tomorrow night at our usual time, 6:30. In the last several meetings, we've had representation from more than one board member. And it's kind of getting to the point where, you know, I can sit in front in here every week and kind of tell you guys the little snippets of what I got, but really all those details and all those questions and well, wait a minute, how does that work? Is really best asked there in the meeting when we can get our answers.
Yeah.
So, you know, I encourage you guys to all join up tomorrow night, 6:30 via Zoom. And we'll be.
Myself is, you know, I'm not. The people in this town are mainly older people.
Yep.
And I think, you know, the quick and cheap is my feeling is probably the better for the town, but. And I don't think the town wants to be in the utility business.
Well, yeah, keep in mind. Being in the utility business sounds like we're responsible for truck rolls, sounds like we're responsible for construction costs. Not really. The utility district is simply an entity, a legal entity that can write checks and take payments, that, you know, can interact with the utility, with the ISP itself. But all of those services like tech calls and whatnot, these are all addressed in the proposals. They're not going to be on us. It really is just a district, like a water district, or like, you know, ambulance service, or, you know, it's just an entity that.
Be kind of like.
It would be like that.
I
Yes.
expect that.
And every one of these models, even with very low take rates, every one of these models that involves forming a broadband utility district, what you're talking about is a small handful of volunteers, which you kind of already got in the Eastern Slopes Regional Broadband Committee. A small handful of volunteers works directly with the ISP. Depending on the model, money comes and goes through the broadband utility district, but in every one of these cases, the town itself is insulated by the broadband utility district, which is, you know, represented by all 7 towns. So I'd be reporting to you guys, but I wouldn't be. I'm asking you for a lot today. That will go on forever. In only one case was it suggested that this project is big enough that we might. Collectively, 7 towns might decide to pay one person a small stipend for a couple of days a week as a commissioner or chair, I guess, of a broadband utility district. But the other 5 respondents didn't think that was going to be necessary.
You can ask another question, Dan?
So I'm sorry.
That was a long.
Okay, yeah. Are you getting younger?
Yeah.
Yeah. But. Inherently, Brownfield has been an older community. You know what, sure, my little crystal ball isn't telling me that, but it doesn't look like it's gonna get any younger.
It really is a guessing game. You know, we can look at data trends nationwide and also just in the state of Maine.
Yeah.
And while the state of Maine does continue to age, the advent of true broadband, high-speed broadband, really has changed the way that people use the internet of all ages. You know, it's suggested that in 10 years, you know, the aged people that get in their cars a couple of times a week and drive to the doctor's office and sit in the waiting room and whatnot may not need to do that. You know, if you've got data that can travel at high speeds, you can put instruments in their houses, they can take their vitals, that information can go to their doctor, they can just have a little like Zoom meeting.
There are a lot of Zoom appointments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just think. And then putting something in here to just support the older community is really limiting the town from growth. To bring in that younger community, and I hear you guys all the time complaining about how the younger community, we don't have enough younger community to get involved. But if we bring something into the town where it's helpful for people who's working at home or whatever, it's going to help the community and help with getting.
Yeah, that's true.
So, you know, I think that's a really great point. It's a good question. We'll be moving on to have these sort of community meetings where people can ask questions and get answers, these kind of things, because it's a big topic.
With the proposals that generate revenue, how long would to the chance that it would possibly produce a dividend?
Typically within the first year. All but one of them, and that one was a little bit different than that. The first debt payments happen until 2026. So there's a little bit of a snowball effect in the front, and so, you know, and still, you know, these are the responses we've gotten from these guys. And we've gone back with some clarifying questions, but we haven't gotten into the phase of negotiation yet. Hey, I'll take your proposal if you make these changes. And lastly, you know, my personal experience as a realtor who's out here in most of these houses all the time, you know, I met with people on at least 25 occasions over the last year where they said, oh, I'm going to need an internet connection. I can't live in Brownfield. So that may or may not speak to your aging community thing too. It's diversified a little bit. I'll tell you that I do most of my work from home, and I would do a lot more of it if I had the bandwidth. So super exciting time. It really is time to start getting, you know, people asking questions and getting answers.
Yeah.
Really important that we all kind of digest this one email with 4 attachments that ended up, as John said, being pages and pages and pages of information trying to understand which is the best proposal. I know in a lot of cases, we bid a project. And we really are looking for the cheapest and quickest, right? Because it's the same project, the outcome is
Yeah.
the same in every case. This is not the case here. Every one of these is a very different model. You know, I'm as green in this as you guys are as well. I just want to make sure that we're thinking about this from the right perspective and getting people's thoughts on it, so.
Okay, good. Thank you. Gregory. You must be you.
That would be me.
Sure.
Sorry, first of all, I am Zachary, that's my name. I apologize for being late. I undershot the traffic leaving town, so I'm sorry I'm running behind. But I'm happy to be here. Thanks for making some time to talk with me. Happy to tell you a little bit about myself, firm, answer any questions you have. Talking about broadband, I was talking about broadband with a client the other day. It's definitely a big topic among our municipal clients right now. So I'm happy to answer any questions you have or tell you a little bit about myself.
I think, of course, years ago, that Burns, I think was the attorney we used for the mill.
Maybe George Burns?
George Burns, yeah.
Yeah. I saw him today. He's like 4 offices down from me. Yeah. Have you had a town attorney in the past?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, in say 99, 2000, I think we had you people.
Bernstein, yeah.
Yeah, and I think Durwood Parkinson.
Yep.
Left. And we went with Durwood.
Yep.
And then. It's moved on, and now it's. There are just things happening that we may need somebody different.
Sure.
We have an ongoing thing that the attorney said that she may not be able to do. Because she had worked with the other person.
Yep.
So that's what
we call it.
Yeah. she could-
Okay.
Yeah, so that could,
Sure. That's usually an ethical conflict.
yeah. And. I guess there was a little bit of a conflict with the water extraction ordinance, because she did part of that working for this company, and then she went to this company, so that put a little,
Sure.
thing, so that's why what made us start thinking that maybe we need to look at something different.
Yeah.
Oh,
Happy to give you some thoughts about who I am, what our firm does. I know obviously Durwood is a great attorney. He was with Bernstein for a long time, sort of went out on his own. I have this conversation a lot. Happy to talk about cost too and different cost structures, because municipalities are not private clients. You've got to respond to your taxpayers and make sure that you're using your dollars wisely and get good legal services. My name's Zach. My family's from Waterville. I grew up sort of Kingfield area. Been in Maine most of my life. I work out of our Portland office. Sometimes I work out of our Augusta office. I grew up as a municipal attorney, but I've also been trained as a litigator like George Burns. I represent pretty much only municipal clients, some big ones down south, some ones up the mid coast, and a lot of smaller towns up this way. I point you to Vern Maxfield in Woodstock, who's a town manager there. Worked with Vern for a long time. The select board chair in the town of Sydney, John Whitcomb, and town manager in Dresden, who was up in Monson, Daniel Swain. Those are all sort of similar sized towns, and I've worked with those town managers and select board chairs a lot the last 5-6 years. Like I said, pretty much only represent municipal clients. I think the days of having just one town attorney who did everything, it's sort of, those days might be over. Even smaller towns have got sort of more complicated legal issues dealing with broadband. There's a ton of money out there to take advantage of that. There's a lot to navigate. There are complicated contracts. There's different funding models. You mentioned an issue with the mill. I assume that was sort of a litigation issue. Maybe something went to trial. So you got trial, you've got real estate stuff. You've got freedom of access act stuff, open meeting law, all that kind of stuff. So I'm trained as a litigator. I'm trained in sort of general municipal governance, open meetings laws and all that. But you may have a real estate issue, you may have a complicated contract issue, you may have labor employment issues that come up. And that all requires like a specialized skill set. And I think it's often more cost effective for our municipal clients to have an attorney who specializes in any one of those things. And our firm has attorneys in all of those areas, many different areas. So, if you decide you want to use us again, what I'd say is, right, I'm sort of the point of contact. So you know who to pick up the phone and call when you've got an issue. And then I sort of act as your clearinghouse. Like if I know how to respond to the issue that you've raised, I can handle it. If I think, all right, look, you want to get some specialized advice about this, I know who to, who put you in touch with somebody else in our firm who handles that specific kind of work. That's the way our model works with all of our municipal clients. There's also a lot of overlap. So I like coming to meetings. I'm always happy to come to night meetings. It's sort of where I live. But if for some reason I'm double booked and I've got to be at another night meeting, there are other attorneys in our office who you may get familiar with who come and do the same job and cover. So you're never sort of left without coverage, never left without somebody to attend a meeting or respond to an issue. For most of our smaller clients, I'm able to sort of handle everything. But again, complicated issues come up, in particular the broadband stuff, because there's a lot of money out there. There's a lot of different funding structures. My specialty is in general municipal governance, municipal litigation, property tax work. So I often represent assessors and boards of assessors in defending property tax appeals and abatement requests. You got a big asset in town, right? It's most of the town property tax base. You got to defend that when the taxpayer comes asking for an abatement. I've done that a lot lately. And I also do bond financing work. That's sort of my other specialty. So I don't think you've issued a bond in a while, but that came up. And that's also one of the funding models that folks are looking at with the broadband coalitions. And so we've actually been trying to work through some of those issues with the state legislature about making sure that broadband coalitions can issue bonds. So that's sort of what I do. And I'm happy to talk about the different sort of ways that it may make sense to pay for this in a way that sort of uses taxpayer dollars most effectively. I think the old model was always just sort of pay as you go. There's a flat hourly rate. That's fine. We've got that arrangement with a lot of our municipal clients. Another way to go is we could look at what your legal spend has been the last like 2-3 years, figure out what the average is, and we can quote you a flat fee for like a 2-year period. And the advantage of the flat fee is we've gotten pretty good at estimating what it is based on what our municipal clients historically spend. The advantage is you know what you're going to pay. So it's an appropriation that you can make at the outset, town meeting. It's just, you've got clarity about that. And I think the real thing that we found as a benefit is it lets Alvina, town staff, whomever, any of you that are authorized to call the town attorney, just call up without worrying about the meter running. And I'll tell you, 9 times out of 10, it's way easier for us to help our clients, particularly municipal clients, before you sort of get to the problem point, right? If you think, look, I think that I see this problem come down the road and I want to talk to you about it and get some advice. That's inside the flat fee. That's inside sort of the scope of services. So the meter's not running on that. We can talk as long as you like. We've got time to do some research and really develop a game plan for you. And I think that's proven pretty cost effective for our municipal clients. I'll tell you one example where I think that's cost effective is, like I said, I work with assessors and boards of assessors a lot, and have an assessor a little south of here call up and say, we got a big box retailer in town, a Walmart, that kind of store. I think they're going to ask for a break on their property taxes and abatement. Can we talk through, and this was before taxes were committed, so the assessor had some some ability to adjust the valuation. Can we talk through what the valuation is? Can you help me build a defensible valuation here? So that maybe we can head this off with a pass, so they don't actually ask for abatement. And if they do, we're in a good position to defend it. And work with that assessor. The taxpayer did come ask for an abatement. But then when we said, okay, look, this is everything that we're gonna say to defend this abatement, they actually packed up and said, okay, we don't actually want to fight this. We'll leave the valuation on. So, you know, if we had gotten involved later, we would have maybe had to try that case, which would have cost, 10, 15 grand. It cost a couple thousand. And that's because the assessor felt like our pick up the phone, call us and get some advice right, yes. I just did a lot of talking at you. I'm happy to answer any questions or anything you're interested in.
With the flat rate that you just mentioned. If you look at us historically, say it's $15,000.
Yep.
Is that flat rate? Is that inclusive of if we do encounter an issue during that year?
Yes,
Or
yeah.
flat rate, so it doesn't matter if there's, say we have a suit that is filed and it has to be defended. So we're still looking at that flat rate plus.
Two things that are generally out of scope. And we can talk about this, it's open for negotiation. But two things that are generally outside of the scope of the flat fee rate are, you might not have done any of these recently, but land use enforcement actions. Like if you've got a junkyard, if you've got some other type of land use enforcement, that's outside the scope, generally because we get our attorney's fees paid for. The law requires that if a municipality, if the town brings an enforcement action against an owner for some sort of land use violation and we win, and we always do,
That's paid for by the.
that's paid for.
Right.
So that's outside the scope. The other thing that's outside the scope generally is extent, like labor and employment litigation. So if you end up before, you end up in labor and employment litigation, that's outside the scope. And then, and this happens very rarely, but it does happen. I'm trying to remember the last time. Probably town of Sydney, maybe 5 years ago, and you called the select board chair and asked them about this. They had civil litigation about a construction project in town, and we had to sue the general contractor and fight about that. That's outside scope, just because it is impossible to predict how much that might end up costing at the outset. Litigation could be, you could resolve it in a week and it could cost $1,000. You could fight for 2 years and it could cost 25,000. And there's no way for us to it's very difficult to tell at the outset. So that type of litigation is outside the scope. Otherwise, property tax, general advice and counsel, attending meetings, board trainings, all that kind of stuff is inside the scope.
Okay.
And we've got happy to put you in touch. None of the clients I mentioned flat fee, but happy to put you in touch with any of our clients that do have flat fee arrangements. I think that they would tell you that they really liked it because of the freedom and
Right.
they feel like they have.
Yeah. Dana?
There's no cap on the hours.
There's no cap on the hours. That's a fair question. There's no cap on the hours. Yeah.
Two of the respondents here have stated that they would help us form a district and that they use exclusively Bernstein Shore.
We've been, this is just an aside, and I don't want to get in the middle of this conversation, but we've been, so the broadband coalitions, that's an interesting sort of way to approach all of this. And we've been trying to work with the state for a long time on behalf of we've got broadband coalition clients and we've got individual municipal towns and cities. We're trying to work with the state to make sure that these coalitions can issue bonds in a way that makes the bonds actually marketable on the open market. And had a meeting the other day with one of the leaders at Maine Connectivity Authority. There's just a ton of money out there to take advantage of to get these projects up and running. And it's an exciting time. So I'll just been involved with this later.
So, you mentioned negotiation.
Yeah.
we got your packet with the hourly.
Yeah,
Any way to get closer to what we're currently paying?
what are you currently paying?
And with the new this year would be 210,
210?
it's $80 an hour less.
Yeah. I can't, I don't have authority in this room right now.
I'm just simply asking
But
the
that's fine,
question
yeah.
to see if it is negotiable, because, even right now. I don't know if we got enough money to pay it.
It is,
If we
it
would
is,
say yes,
it is negotiable, and that's why. Yeah, it is negotiable, and I'm happy to get back to you later in the week about maybe a lower number on my hourly rate. What I tell you though is, honestly, I think that's why the flat fees ends up making sense for a lot of our clients, because you do get unlimited time within that scope of services, which is pretty broad.
I
yeah.
agree.
Yeah.
But. I'm looking at it right now. As we're halfway through our fiscal year. And we've only got X amount of dollars.
Yeah.
So to just say, yeah, we can, currently, we're only being charged 2.
Yep.
210 hasn't gone into effect, so. That's $90 an hour more, and. Our fiscal year is July 1.
Yeah.
So I'm taking we'd be able to work a deal to where if we were to do this, flat rate could start for X amount of dollars, and then that way we could plan for because we're in budget season right now.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
I hear you. That makes sense to me. I have people I answer to. Let me
Oh,
talk
I'm
to them.
sure.
Yeah, let me talk to them but I hear you. You're in the middle of your fiscal year, and that's fair. Yeah.
Should you remind, maybe he wasn't here, remind him we're an aging population. I'm just teasing.
He heard that.
Yeah.
Are there any municipalities locally that you guys represent?
Yeah, so it's actually local, but Bethel, up the road a little bit. I've been up there a lot recently. Trying to think, but Bethel's the one I do the most work for around here. And I realize again, it's not exactly around here.
How long have you been practicing?
This will be my 8th year of practice. I like it. I mean, I was talking to folks in the town office, and she mentioned their daughter was thinking about going to law school, and she always asks lawyers, like, do you like what you do? And she said that 70% of them say no. I love working with towns and cities. These are the best clients to have. And I tell that to my colleagues that like work for private clients. They should really try working for towns.
Yeah.
I mean, Frank Shore didn't get to be the largest municipal lawyers by not doing a good job.
That's true. I'd like to think that we do a good job, and you should, like I said, you call Vern Maxfield in Woodstock, or the select board chair in Sydney, John Woodcomb. Let them tell you whatever they want to say about me.
That's my question.
Perfect. Well, we'll do more discussion and get and see if you can figure out something on that end, and
I will follow up with it. Absolutely.
I appreciate that
Yeah.
very much.
You work with ordinances and
Yes.
budget committee, not budget, planning boards.
Yep.
Comprehensive committees, bylaws and all that stuff.
All that. So that's a great question, and it's something I sort of left out. Talking about questions about ordinances, working with code enforcement officers, attending planning board meetings, select board meetings, CBA meetings. All that is included in flat fee. It's also stuff that I do pretty regularly as part of the general sort of municipal governance that I do. I'm often serving as planning board counsel, so I'll go to meetings, advise planning boards, advise zoning boards of appeal. I work with code enforcement officers quite a bit.
If there's issues within them.
Yeah, are you talking about some rewriting of your ordinances?
We're kind of in the hornet's nest here, so but you're familiar with all that stuff.
Yeah, we've actually we've done that. One of my colleagues is really an expert at that. And if you wanted to sort of do a comprehensive rewrite of like their zoning ordinance or.
Oh, it's been rewritten.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things we often do is. When a town wants to do a big rewrite or big reorg of their ordinances. It's often more cost effective to hire a planner to come in and do that. But you need some guidance at the outset in terms of how you want to legally structure the ordinances. Do you want a code of ordinances? Do you want separate standalone ordinances? And one of my colleagues, Phil Saucier, who's one of the best land use attorneys in the state, that's what he does pretty much exclusively.
Right now, what sort of what I'm looking for anyway. Is it's all been written, being proposed, and there's a lot of questions. That are gray areas. What does it mean?
Yeah.
What does it mean to the townspeople? It's getting quite confusing, so more or less would like it reviewed. And has there been something done wrong? If there is, how do we fix it?
Yeah.
And guidance on how to move forward. It's not pointing the finger at anybody, it's just that it's getting massively confused, and there's a certain people that swear by it. And they may understand it different than we do.
Yeah.
Or I do.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of clarification.
Yeah, and if you have, if you've sort of see this sometimes in towns. If you've amended the ordinance and a bunch, if you had a zoning ordinance, you've amended it a lot of times. You've added separate standalone ordinance over the years. You can get to a point where they contradict each other. Like you said, there's
We've got documented errors and stuff. So what does that mean?
Yeah. We definitely work with towns a lot to sort of to clean those issues up. You can do it a lot of different ways, right? You can do sort of targeted approach where you try and fix each of the little problems, or you can do comprehensive rewrite of everything, which takes a lot of time, but it does sort of get through.
Well, this stuff has taken place like in the last 9 years, 10 years or 20 years. It's kind of been, and now it's trying to get straightened out, or they're moving on, and so it's got to be kind of looked at, reviewed. What do we have? What do we do? Where do we go? How do we fix it, etc. Kind of got to start at the beginning to see where it's escalated to. I don't know if any of this early on discrepancies have null and voided some of the later stuff.
Yeah, you get sort of dig into it to know. I don't mean to chew up too much time. I'd like to ask you all 2 questions if I can. The first is, what do you see as like the biggest set of issues facing the town
Right now?
Yeah.
It's
Land use, I guess, is one big one.
Yep.
I think the marijuana thing's pretty much straightened out.
Land use. In what fashion?
The new ordinance stuff with the amount of feet. Where Saco River Shores has changed. It was 75 feet before, and now it's 200 feet.
Yeah.
And had the people bought these lots.
The wetlands?
Wetlands or even by the river. When you can be by the river, but you're 30 feet higher than your next door neighbor, but you're still within this distance, so that it doesn't count.
Yeah.
So these are the questions I have. I mean, the things on.
Yeah. Land use issues. It sounds like you've some towns never call their town attorney, other towns use their town attorney all the time. It sounds like you've used your town attorney a bit in the past. What in your mind is what's the difference between what you're looking for in terms of a decent town attorney and somebody who's like really good, great? Like, what's the difference there?
I like direct answers.
Sure, that's
That's
correct. Yeah.
That's. Not, well, we start over here and we go around here, and then we come back over here and go around here, and then we cross here and come back to here. No.
Whenever I have to say it depends to people, I always say it's the reason, I always preface it with, this is the reason people hate lawyers. But I hear you. Yeah, a little clarity.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all. I appreciate your time. Again, I apologize for being late. Yeah, it's nice
We
to.
have plenty of business to do, so.
I'll stop shooting at the time and I'll get back to you, hopefully by the end of the week.
Okay,
Thank you all very much.
thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Yep. You wanna make a motion?
Okay,
Yeah. Oh, well,
only for this one I asked you.
Yeah.
Good. All right, make motion to go into executive session for personnel.
thank you, folks.
Yeah,
Yeah, we vote. We're voting to, yes.
Yeah, I said that because I'm so used to it.
I didn't know anything about this.
I just asked him about it.
Yeah, I didn't know either, so. It's something popped in his head.
Yes, just now, that's why I asked. But I went to the chairman.
Cell phone does not last.
On 113. No, you were the last person. So was I. I was some say. I'm mad.
Was somebody beating you with a fire hose or something?
Where was it at?
At my shop. I blamed it on my dog. I was going to a call, and I put the phones in my pocket, and she called me. Because she doesn't want me shoving my roof on. I said, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna do it at 1 o'clock. Don't come on the phone on my regular phone. Get phones in my pocket. Usually I take them both out. I put them on the seat. So it's not my phone. It's on the trunk. But then on the seat thing, and I had it. And I took off.
This much.
I was not.
So I took off. I went to the store to get parts. I came back, had it. I called them and said, they were doing. Sometimes they go out. No, so I checked my truck all over. I didn't bump it. So granddaughter come down. I told her, says, she says, I'll go look. You don't see too good. Oh, she doesn't again.
Doing you something.
Well, she was out there looking all over. She just says. And so I did that. You don't hear too good. Okay, so we called her. So she went through that vehicle, nothing. But she stood outside like this.
Point where
She called again. We called her out. But she started wandering on the parking lot. She could go by the gas pump.